Hi everyone and welcome back to the Crafty Yellow Camper, and today I'm going to show you how to make this card. I'm not sure that it really has a name, but it's sort of like a joyfold card. Now I saw this card on the Demonstrator Facebook page, and it was designed by a lady called Sue Boothby. So couldn't remember her name, but I went back and had a good look, and her card's absolutely beautiful, and this is inspired by her card. There weren't any measurements, so I just luckily she'd put a video showing it being opened on Facebook. So this is my interpretation of your card, Sue, and I hope you like it. Okay, so it's a many layered card. So we have this new Mossy Meadow twine that goes with this whole suite, of which the Garden Wishes stamp set is one of the stamp sets. The Dandelion, Dragonfly Garden is the other stamp set in the suite, which has the matching punch. This one has a set of dies, and you'll have seen some of those dies in some of my other YouTube videos. I particularly like the one that builds up a 3D dandelion, but today we're just going to use the stamp set. So I'll show you how the card opens. So you've got this piece of Mossy Meadow twine here. Excuse me, I've got very sore thumbs. Right, okay, so this opens, this flap opens to reveal this little card here, which then opens to reveal the main picture, which then opens to reveal this hidden message panel inside. So I guess it would class as a hidden message card, or maybe a joyfold card. So I'm going to show you how to make it. So I'm just going to move that one to one side, and I'm going to bring my trimmer in. Now the card starts with an A4 sheet. So if you're in the UK, this is our standard A4 sheet. If you're anywhere else, it'll be whatever size your paper is, should work. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to cut this A4 sheet along the long side at 14.8. So that's effectively cutting the cardstock in half. So we have two pieces that are the same. Okay, for the main body of the card, we need one whole piece. So I'm just going to pop that to one side for the minute. And then we need to make our smaller card, this one here, that goes inside, because it is actually a whole card. Okay, so for that, we're going to use the second half of our piece of cardstock, and we are going to cut this at 18 by 10, which will give us a 9 by 10 smaller internal card. So I'm just going to open up my arm on my trimmer. Okay, obviously use whatever trimmer you are more familiar with, and we're going to cut this down to 18, and then we're going to cut it down again at 10 centimetres. So this will give us the height of the card by 9, which is our width of the internal card. Okay, so this is our piece for the internal card. So there are two pieces of base cardstock, and then to go with that, we need some white matte layers. So first of all, we need a standard C6 matte layer. I'll put this back in again now, which in the UK, I use 14.3 by 10, which gives us a nice little gap all the way around. So I'm going to cut that at 14.3, and then I'm going to cut that again at 10 centimetres. So that gives us the front for our card. And if I hold it up to our half an A4 sheet, you can see that that gives us the front. Okay, next we need some layers for this little inner card. And those are going to be cut at 9.5 by 8.5. So if we trim down this piece to 9.5, and then 8.5. That's one piece, and then we need another piece. So I'm cutting this down to 8.5 again. Now with a standard C6 matte layer, you will get 4 card fronts out of one sheet of A4 Whisper White. Just going to pop those to one side so they're out of the way. And obviously plenty of smaller ones. Okay, so that's all our trimming done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove my trimmer out of the way and just hang that back up, and then we can work on these pieces here that we've got. So some people prefer to score their cardstock. I don't. I prefer to fold mine. So I'm just going to bring my bone folder in, and I'm just going to fold my base cardstock in half. Make sure it's level. on the corners and just give that a burnish. Okay. Now, the sun was out here a minute ago, but it's just gone in, so I'm just going to turn my light on. Hopefully that hasn't blinded anybody. Okay, right, so that's our main card base. And this is the layer that fits on the front, and you can see it gives it a nice even gap. Okay, so this is our small card base, and this is the one that we cut at 18 by 9, I think it was, wasn't it? 18, no, yeah, no, 18 by 10, sorry, to look at my measurements. So again, we're going to fold that in half, and we're just going to burnish that, crease and burnish that, and this will make our internal card. And the reason that we've got two small white pieces is because one will go on the front to give us our card front, and one will go inside. And it's really important that you don't get these the wrong way round. I've done it, it's easy. Okay, so let's move my bone folder out. So the first thing we're going to do is work on our smaller cards. So I'm going to bring the stamp set in, and for this I'm using this dandelion image with 3 dandelions on it. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that in. Now, I prefer to stamp in basic grey when I'm stamping images to be coloured in. Some people prefer black. I prefer the softer line from the basic grey. Okay, so I've put our main card to one side and we're working on our smaller card. Okay, we're working on the card front. So I've mounted up my stamp and I'm just going to ink it up with some basic grey, and then I'm going to stamp it, and you'll notice that the bottom of the stamp goes off the paper, so that's absolutely fine. And I'm going to stamp that sort of slightly off to the left hand side, just slightly off centre. Now with these stamps that have got curved edges, it's really important that you don't wiggle it, otherwise you will catch the edge of the red rubber here and you'll end up with a halo effect. I hope you can see that. So we haven't got that because I literally put it down, left it for a few minutes to soak into the cardstock and lifted it straight up. If you wiggle it at all, if you have sort of this motion, rocking motion, you will end up with a halo. So that's our front for that card. And then I'm going to go and grab the little bee. So there he is. There's our little tiddly bee. Very cute. Okay. And he's flying at an angle, so to make life easier for me I'm just going to put him up straight. Okay, and then we've got his little tailwind, I suppose you'd call it, to make it look like he's buzzing. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to, again in basic grey, we're going to add our little bee, and I want him to look like he's about to land on the flower. So straight down, don't wobble, and straight up. These little stamps and narrow stamps are one of the worst ones for catching, but you can see there, because I went straight down, straight up, we've got no halo on that. And then for the inside of the card, this is the card piece that we're going to write on. I'm going to use the bee again, and we're going to pop him up in the right hand corner. Okay, and then these stamps, again, really fiddly, be careful with these. So remember, we want to go straight down, no wobbling, and straight up, and then you get a nice clean stamp. That's my top tip for you today. So that's our bee for the inside, and that's our bit for the front. Now these are going to be watercoloured, but you don't need to watch me watercolouring, so I will do that after I've finished filming this video, but just for the purposes of putting the card together, you can now see where we're going. So we're working on this little internal card. So the first thing we need to do is stick our panel where we're going to write in. Now the important thing about this is that you make sure you get the card the right way up. Now I'm left-handed, so this sort of seems like a natural opening for me because you hold the card on the left, but it's the wrong way around for everybody else. But you need the fold on the right hand side, and that's the really important bit on this card. If you put your fold on the left hand side, then it won't work. Okay, so I find by doing this bit first, you don't get yourself in so much of a muddle because you've got the bits where they should be. Okay, so we're just going to mount that inside our little card, and again, those sizes give you a little bit of a edge around the edge. Okay, so that's the inside of our card, and now we need the front of our card. And I always say to you, don't mount things up with the card folded and bouncing around, but just make sure that you open it up the right way. and not the wrong way. I've done it. Okay, so we want our fold on the right and we're sticking our panel in. Okay, so you're basically making a back to front card, and this is exactly what we should be doing. Oh, and I can just see I've got wet fingers on there and I've smudged that, but that's fine, I'll deal with that later. Okay, so this is now our internal card. Okay, so that's that piece complete, and the only thing I've forgotten to tell you to do is to stick your twine underneath that edge, but that's fine because we've used wet glue. So I'm just going to cut off a piece of twine. Okay, and I'm just going to lift up that edge if you're quick. So when you make this card, remember to put it together with the twine underneath, and you want it roughly in the middle. Okay, so that's our internal card with its piece of twine. Okay, so we're going to work on the main card front now, which is this one. And for this one, we're going to bring out the single dandelion, which is this one here. Just going to find another biggish block to mount that up on. And again, we want to use basic grey. Just realised even my scissors have got bees on. Okay, so we're working on this panel. This is a standard C6 card, so we want to have our dandelion to the left on this one. Again, straight down, give it a couple of minutes to soak into the cardstock, and straight up. That way you will get a nice neat stamp. We're after our little bee again. We want him to look like he's about to land, so we're going to pop him there. Straight down, don't wobble, straight up. And we want his little tailwind because he's buzzed in. Okay, so straight down, don't wobble, straight up. Okay, now to finish this bit off, there is a really pretty little stamp in here which gives the illusion of the stamens of the dandelion flying away. There we go. So I'm just going to bring my grey in again, and we're just going to stamp carefully a couple of those going off. Again, don't wobble, going off to the right hand side of the card. There we go, as if they're blowing away in the breeze. Okay, so that's all our stamping done. I'm just going to close up my ink pad and move it out of the way. So that is the front panel of the card. So we can go ahead and... No, we can't. I get this wrong every time. We're not going to stick that on yet. Okay, so that's our front panel of our card. This is our internal card. Oh, and my twine's come off. Where's it gone? Where did it go? Oh, fallen in my bin under my desk. Okay, so do as I say, not as I do. You will need to stick that under there when you stick this card front on. So I'm just going to go back and pop a little bit of glue on the end of my twine. This is not the perfect way to do it, so try and remember to stick your twine in before you stick the card front on, which is what I didn't do. Okay, so we've got that in there. Give that a minute to dry. So we're just going to put these bits of the card away. Now, you should have had some scrap pieces of yellow left over from when you cut your A4 sheet down, and these are what you've got left. We don't need this piece, you can discard that. We do need this piece, however. So that makes this flap here, which is going to close over our internal card. Okay, so we need that piece. So what we're going to do, I'm going to bring my trimmer in again, and we just need to cut this down. And this gets cut at, just checking my measurements so I don't tell you the wrong thing, 4.8 by 7 centimetres. Okay, so we want 7 centimetres long. So I'm just going to trim that down there. And we're going to trim this to 4.8 centimetres wide, and it is literally just a sliver. If you prefer a very slightly wider one, you could leave it as it was. And I'll just show you. That is, oh, I would if I could get it out of the trimmer. That is just literally a sliver on, so you could leave it that wide if you wanted to. And then what we need to do, we need to score this at 1 centimetre. So I'm just going to pop it back in my trimmer, line it up with 1 centimetre, and then just give it a score. Okay, that really is all our trimming done now. So You just need to fold and burnish on that score line, which will just give you a centimetre to stick on under your card front. So I'm going to bring this back in again, and this folded piece here needs to be stuck underneath this card front. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put some glue onto the flap. Okay, and then I'm going to put some glue onto my card front. I'm sorry, I just realised I was out of shot there. Okay, now this is the reason I'm using wet glue. You can use a tape runner, but bear in mind that you need to get this panel on. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, first of all, open out my card so it's not bouncy. I'm just going to offer up that panel, but don't press it down yet. So lay that on there, and then you need to come in with this bit that we've folded, and you need to slide that underneath the front panel about halfway down, and then go over and firm your panel down. Okay, so we've got that panel now. Okay, now I used a punch to do the greeting. I can never remember what this punch is called, but it's either Lovely Label or some such. They're in the annual catalogue. Good punch, use it for a lot of things. It fits a lot of greetings. And the greeting I chose to use on this is Made with Love for a True Friend. So I'm just going to pull that greeting out of my set. Okay, and just quickly put that on a block. Now my tip for you for getting your punches, your greetings straight, is to use your grid paper to line up whichever straight edge there is on it. So on this one, because we've got the, oh sorry, I realised you can't see, because we've got the sort of more standard text at the top and the more curly stuff at the bottom, I'm lining the top up, and then I can get it hopefully straight. And we're going to bring in, we had a couple of scraps left if you remember from cutting those that white cardstock down, so I'm going to bring that in, and this time I'm going to stamp it in Daffodil Delight, which is what I've used for my card base. But obviously whatever colour you use for your card base, stamp your greeting. So when you're stamping on scraps of paper, always make sure you leave a bit of a gap round them. If you stamp it right off to the left, there might not be enough room for the punch. Okay, so I'm going to bring my punch in now, and make sure you use a piece of scrap paper that's big enough. Okay, this is just about right. The other thing I like about our punches is if you squeeze but not squeeze enough to punch, you can hold it in place and see if it's in the centre, which that was. So let's get rid of that. Okay, so that's our greeting, and I'm just going to put a couple of dimensionals onto the back of that. I can grab my dimensionals wherever they are. There they are. Going to put a couple of dimensionals on the back, and then that is going to go on our label. Okay, another little tip for you: if you struggle to get the backs off dimensionals, if you haven't got very long nails, just dig your thumbnail into the middle, and it will lift the edges and make it a lot easier for you to pull that off. And then that is going to go onto our flap. And the other thing you need to do now is put your other piece of twine on. Okay, so we're using 2 pieces of twine to be able to tie our bow. Okay, so before we stick this label on, I've removed the backs from the punched bits, and we need a piece of twine which is going to line up with this piece of twine. So this is where I've put my twine down again and dropped it again in the bin. This is where we need to put the little card in. So just put your label to one side, upside down for a minute, and because we need to make sure this is going to line up. So the card, as you can see from here, goes internally, and the edge of the card, the edge of the internal card, is lined up with the edge of the outside card. Okay, so that is going to sit there. You don't need to glue it or anything at this stage, you just need to make sure you've got it in the right place. Okay, so that's going to go there like that. This bit is going to shut. Okay, And then this bit is going to go over the top. So this is the important bit. You need to make sure you've got your internal card in the right place to line up with your greeting and the twine. Okay, so you can see there it's more or less in the middle. So if I bring my other piece of twine in, this, you need the left hand end of this twine stuck, okay, because we're going to use that to tie our bow. So I'm going to pop that there, get rid of the bit out of the way, and then you should be able to make sure, if you've put your dimensionals in the right place, that you can trap that piece of twine under a dimensional. There we are. Okay, so that's most of the card finished. What we need to do now is we need to glue this card internally. Okay, so remember, it's got to line up with the outside edge of the bottom of the card with the crease of the inside card. Okay, hope that makes sense. So what we're going to do, I'm going to put some glue on the back of this. Keep your piece of twine out of the way because you don't want to get that gluey. Okay, so we've got some wet glue on the back there. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're sort of going to do this backwards because this is the tricky bit. So we know that we need this spine edge here to line up with the edge of the card. So if we bring that in there like that, we also know that we need the glue to line up, the twine to line up. So if you move your card, you can see I've got the adhesive here. I'm just trying to get my twine out of it. If you move your internal card up until your twine is level, like that, which mine now is, slide your fingers under the bottom, make sure you haven't got an inky sticky thumb, and hold that there. Okay, then flip it over, close the card internally like that, so you've got a little gap, and then we want to close the back of the card, so we've got this edge on the outside of the card. So if I close the back of my card over now and give that a press, let's hope this has worked. Okay, yep, there we go. So we've got a nice neat edge down the right hand side. We've got our internal card, our card front, and our hidden message panel. And I did have a sticky thumb, so I'll be going over that with my glue rubber later. Okay, there you go. So that's the basic bones of the card. Obviously I haven't coloured mine in. You don't need to watch me colouring in with watercolour pencils. I've done enough of that already. And then you can just tie yourself a little bow at the front there, and there's your finished card. There, so thank you, Sue Boothby, for the inspiration. I absolutely loved your card, and you made me want to go away and grab a piece of paper and a pencil, which is exactly what I did, and sketch out your card as best as I could. I'm really sorry if I've trashed your card in this video, but hopefully you'll forgive me, and hopefully you'll like my interpretation on your card too. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with some more new goodies from the annual catalogue. Seasonal catalogue. Happy stamping. Bye for now.